And as the clock ticks to the general election, the federal government is assuring citizens that the polls will hold despite increasing security threats. Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed gave the assurance Tuesday at the 17th edition of President Muhammadu Buhari's scorecard series. And correspondent Tijesu Adeoye reports.
Tension continues to rise ahead of Nigeria's general elections scheduled for February this year, 2023. Reports of violent attacks on individuals and INEC facilities across the country have sparked up genuine concerns among the electorate and officials of the electoral body who fear that the attacks may affect the schedule of the elections. But the federal government has continued to reassure Nigerians that it has everything under control and there is nothing to fear. At the 17th edition of the President Muhammadu Buhari scorecard series, Nigeria's information minister insists the elections will hold as scheduled.
The position of the federal government remains that the 2023 elections will be held as planned. Nothing has happened to change that position. We are aware that INEC is working with the security agencies to ensure that the elections are successfully held across the country. The security agencies have also continued to assure Nigerians that they are working tirelessly to ensure that the elections are held in a peaceful atmosphere. Therefore, there is no cause for alarm.
The successful containment of the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria is one of the hallmarks of the Buhari administration. The Minister of Health says his ministry has been very active in preventive health, especially putting in place measures and policies to prevent a resurgence of the COVID-19 virus and other infectious diseases.
We work and create policy according to what the science tells us. So we are observing closely what's happening in other countries. We are observing what they are doing, and we are involving ourselves with increasing vaccination, because vaccination is the #1 protection. And then we are also doing everything we can to create awareness, to tell you, well, we need to go back to wearing masks.
So far, 17 ministries have presented their scorecard at the ongoing media series of President Muhammadu Buhari's scorecard, with just a few more to go. From all that has been said and done, Nigerians will be the judge as they rate 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Tijesu Adeoye, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, back to an earlier story where the federal government, they say that it assures citizens that the polls will hold despite increasing security threats. Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed gave that assurance on Tuesday at the 17th edition of President Muhammadu Buhari's scorecard series. Now, you recall that there was a statement credited to the INEC chairman who had said that because of the security threats around the country, there might be cancellations of elections in some areas, but that things have been put in place to ensure we have enough security for the election. But joining me now to talk about this security ahead of the polls, we have the head of elections program, Yaga Africa, Paul James. He joins me on the news via Zoom. Good to have you join us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The first statement we got was from the INEC chairman, who has said that because of the security challenges we're having in some area, that we might have cancellation in some areas that will be sufficient enough to not declare the result, and that might lead to a constitutional crisis. But we've also heard from the federal government that elections would hold. But I know that Yaga Africa carries out a lot of research and assessment of areas. What's your thought on this? Where do you stand on the security towards the election?
I think I share the same concerns with the INEC chair, especially what the constitutional implication of what could possibly happen be. Currently at Yaga, we are recruiting observers for the election. And I can tell you it is concerning that in almost 30 of the 36 states and the FCT, we've had some of these challenges that is hindering our people from going into some of the communities to recruit observers. Specifically in Imo State, we have 5 local governments that we have seen resistance. We have where our supervisors have not been allowed to go there and recruit observers. We have, for instance, in Olu, in Osu, in Oru East, in Ehime and Bano, where we are yet to get observers. We also have concerns from Ihiala. Ihiala was where we also had concerns during the 2021 Anambra gubernatorial elections. And now again, we are about to get observers for the presidential election. It has been challenging. It has been very concerning. So I am not surprised that this is also coming from INEC. Not to also forget that it is also the human element that will be involved. As much as we are talking about technology and improvements in the coming election, it is a human element that will pilot this election. And we have seen attacks on INEC in recent times, especially in the southern part of the country. We have also seen direct assault on INEC officials. So INEC is right to raise these concerns that if the people are not open enough to allow their personnel to be able to conduct elections, then we'll begin to talk about a constitutional, not just even the personnel, if it is not conducive enough for voters to go out and participate in the process come February 25th or March the 11th this year, then we may not be able to conclude the election of first ballot. Then you begin to talk about also, especially states that are not being able to, are not counted in the national election. What happens in those states?
And especially when because you mentioned the issue of personnel, and when you also think of the fact that, look, it is a youth corps members who form a large number of those who will be working during the elections, and so you want to guarantee their security. But I wanted to ask you about, because you've talked about Imo State earlier, if the other states that you might also see as where you have these security red flags, and then what you think can be done before the election.
There are still these concerns in the northwest states, especially states like Zamfara, parts of Sokoto State, part of Kaduna State. In the north central, there are concerns in some parts of Benue State. There are concerns also in the north central in Niger State. If you go to the northeast, there are concerns from some parts of Adamawa State, and then also the thief and Jukun crisis also in some parts of Taraba State that are yet to be contained. In the south, there are concerns also. We have received complaints of concerns from Cross River State, especially where you have the border between Nigeria and Cameroon, the Bakassi Peninsula. So, of course, it's beyond just the assurance from the government that elections will hold. Citizens want to see action, positive action. Before now, there was that renewed hope that by December of 2022, things will dissipate. But here we are in 2021 and 2023, and this crisis are still there. Barely about 3 or 4 weeks until the election, about 45 days from now till the election. So we want to see action, and we don't want to see take this at what we are seeing in previous election, where the people in power may want to use this to extend their time in government, in office. We want to see concrete steps by the police, by all that is involved in providing security, especially to provide that assurance, that committed assurance that they want to nip this crisis in the bud, not just coming from the quarters of the government, especially the Minister for Information, but we want to also hear from the security and know indeed in concrete terms what they are doing to stem this monster.
Thank you so much for talking to us, as always. That was very informative. Head of Elections Program, Yaga Africa, Paul James.
Thank you very much. All the best.